So, your church or religious organization in Longview or Kelso feels that call to help, to provide shelter for those in need. But you've probably also run into a wall of confusion, right? It feels like this maze of city permits and rules. Well, in this explainer, we're going to cut right through all that noise and give you a clear, legal roadmap to opening your doors when people need it the most. Okay, let's just get right to the biggest question we hear all the time. The temperature's dropping, you know people are at risk out on the streets. Do you really have to just sit there and wait for the city to officially declare a severe weather event before you can actually do something? It's a super frustrating spot to be in, feeling like your hands are completely tied. And the answer, thanks to Washington state law, is a big, loud, powerful no. You do not have to wait. And this isn't just wishful thinking, it's your protected legal right. You know, this one single fact completely changes the game. It shifts the conversation from, can we please have permission, to, we are exercising our ministry. So here's what we're going to cover. We're going to break down the two legal paths you can take, detail exactly what the law requires you to do, see how all this stuff applies to safe parking for vehicles, and then we'll wrap up with the concrete first steps to make it all happen. Let's get you that roadmap. All right, the most important thing to get your head around is this. There are two totally different legal lanes you can operate in. Seriously, think of it like a highway. If you pick the right lane from the very beginning, you can just cruise past all the red tape and the potential delays. So here's the bottom line. The city permit path, that's all about asking for temporary permission, which at the end of the day, the city controls. But the state law path, the one that was literally designed for organizations like yours, is about exercising a right you already have to carry out your mission. See the difference? One's a question, the other is a statement. First, let's take a quick look at the city permit path. Honestly, this is the lane that causes the most headaches for churches because, well, it really wasn't made for you. It's the restrictive option, and it basically puts the city in the driver's seat. When you're in this lane, the city holds all the cards. The city manager has to make that official call, usually when the forecast is going to dip below 35 degrees. You can only open for that little window of time, and then you have to shut down, even if you know the need is still out there. This path means getting a temporary use permit, and it's mostly for non-religious groups. But now, let's switch over to the lane you want to be in, the path paved by Washington state law. This is where you, as a religious organization, get the freedom and the authority to act based on your mission, not just a weather report. And this right here, this is where the real power is. State law, specifically RCW 3521.915, says that cities are not allowed to impose rules that would substantially burden your ministry. Those two words, substantially burden, that's your shield. It means a city can't just block you with zoning complaints or other local rules because they don't like the idea of a shelter being there. And this chart just lays it all out perfectly. Look at the left. The city decides when you open, how long you open. But over on the right, under state law, the trigger is your leadership's decision. The duration? It could be for a cold snap, the entire winter, or even year-round. Your authority comes straight from state law, not some local permit. The bottom line is, the control shifts from them to you. Now, of course, all this freedom doesn't just mean it's a free-for-all. To use this right legally and, responsibly, the state gives you a mandatory checklist. Following these steps is how you protect everyone involved, your ministry, your volunteers, and especially your guests. Okay, so there are 4 non-negotiables. Number 1, you have to host a public meeting for your neighbors before you open. And this is so important. You don't need their permission, but you are required to give them a place to voice their concerns. 2, you need a written code of conduct for your guests. 3, you have to provide basic sanitation. And 4, you must meet the fire marshal's safety standards. And I really want to pause on that last point for a minute. Because while the city can't use zoning to stop you, there is one area where they have absolute, total, non-negotiable authority. And it's the number one reason a well-meaning shelter gets shut down. Fire safety. This is the big one. The fire marshal is going to be looking for some very specific things. Every single area where people are sleeping must have 2 clear, accessible exits. You've got to have working smoke and CO detectors. You absolutely can't have a bunch of extension cords daisy-chained together for power. And if your building doesn't have a sprinkler system, you'll probably need what's called a fire watch. That's a trained volunteer who stays awake all night just to make sure everyone is safe. So let's keep going, because these same powerful rights from the state don't just apply to hosting people indoors. They also cover another huge need in our community, giving people who live in their vehicles a safe, legal place to park for the night. Now, when you're wondering how many vehicles you can actually host, there is a pretty simple rule of thumb that cities tend to use. State law lets them limit your capacity to one vehicle for every 10 parking spots you have. So, if your lot has 50 spaces, you can legally host up to 5 vehicles. Simple as that.
And hey, this list of requirements should look really familiar. You need a managing agency, which can totally just be the church itself. You have to provide 24/7 access to bathrooms and hand washing. You need a clear written code of conduct. And yep, you guessed it, that mandatory public meeting with the neighbors is required here too. The principles are exactly the same.
Okay, we've gone through the law, the 2 pads, the things you absolutely have to do. So, how do you actually start? Let's take all this information and turn it into a real, actionable plan you can use right away. First things first, know who to call. If you're in Longview, you'll want to notify the planning department and the fire marshal and make it super clear you're operating under the state law exemption, not their local city code. In Kelso, it's a little more direct. You'll contact the city manager's office and Cowitz 2 Fire and Rescue.
And here it is, your 3-step launch plan. Step 1, draft a simple notice of intent and send it to the right city department. And make sure you specifically cite that state law, RCW 35.21.915. This tells them you know your rights. Step 2, schedule that public meeting. And step 3, this is a fantastic tip. Call the fire marshal, but ask for a consultation. Don't ask for an inspection. Just say, hey, we want to do this the right way. What do we need to do to be safe? That proactive, collaborative approach really sets the perfect tone from day one.
Look, we've navigated a lot of legal jargon, but it really all comes down to this one simple thing. The law isn't a barrier. It's the tool that empowers you to actually fulfill your mission. You have the protected, legal right to open your doors and provide warmth and safety. So the only question left is whose life will you change first?